Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm delighted today to be joined by Simon Nichols, founder and wellbeing director at Thrive, and Alex Crowe, founder of Stress Boffin. As many of you will know, we've been working with Simon to deliver many of the user group's mental health initiatives over the last 18 months, and with Alex also delivered a couple of excellent sessions. We all will hopefully have met Alex and Simon throughout, and many of you may remember Alex from a number of our conferences, blown us away with his mind reading throughout our networking receptions. But Simon, Alex, we'll give you a little update a bit later on what we're doing with the mental health, positive mental health sessions within the user group. But it would be great for any new listeners if you could just both introduce yourselves, if that's all right. So Simon.
Thank you, Craig. So, Simon Nichols, long-time collaborator and friend of the SAP user group, both in my previous life as sales and marketing exec. I actually attended many of the SUGFests, and a great time was had by all. Latterly, in the last 3 years, I founded Thrive, which is a mental health and wellbeing company, and we've been proud to be the mental health and wellbeing partner of the SAP user group throughout the last 18 months, 2 years. And as you say, we've run many great, I thought they were great, but I would say that being on my side of the fence, but mental health sessions to help our members. But it's wonderful to be here, and I think, as I say, a few of you might have heard me on previous podcasts as well. Great to be back.
Oh, thank you, Alex.
Yes, thank you, Craig. Lovely to be here. So, Alex Crowe, mind reader and stress boffin. So, my core profession for many years has been as a corporate mind reader. So, performing at various events, and as Craig mentioned, I have been to some of your events, doing some networking, mind reading at some of those events. But quite a few years ago, I got interested in NLP and started studying that along with psychology and various other techniques, and become a master practitioner of NLP, timeline therapy and hypnotherapy. And about 3 years ago, I developed these workshops really to help people manage stress and build resilience. The key thing with the workshops is that they're a proactive workshops. It's a proactive approach to stress rather than trying to get to people when they're already stressed. It's to give people the techniques and tools and resources they need to stop them getting stressed in the first place and to build resilience. And that's where we are today.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Simon, and welcome to you both. I think it's fair to say it's been a sports-filled summer with the Euros and the Olympics over the last couple of months. As kind of a self-confessed sports nut, I've really enjoyed it, I have to say, and I'm really enjoying the test at the moment, and let's hope we can hold it out in the weather holes for us to get through and win this test in Leeds. But it got me thinking about the sports person I most admired, and for me it goes back to my youth, and it's Ian Botham. I mean, the way he grabbed those Ashes in '81 by the scruff of the neck, and after the challenging time he'd had as captain of England as well, and it inspired me and underlined my love for Test cricket. So what I'd like to know from you is, who is the sports person you most admire and why? Start with you, Alex.
Oh, no, I was hoping you're going to start with Simon. I have no interest in sport whatsoever. I don't watch sport. I don't do sport. I have, to give you an illustration very quickly how bad I am at sport, I did an event quite a few years ago, and I did a mind reading thing, and I got someone up to read their mind. I was telling him that he was very goal orientated, always set themselves goals and looking for new goals, and a couple of days later, I found out it was a guy called Jens Lehmann, who was the goalkeeper for Arsenal. And I had no idea. And he phoned me up and said, phoned me a couple of months later, Alex, it's Jens Lehmann here. And he booked me to do the Arsenal end of season meal. And I've got these guys up, and I've got this guy. So, what's your name, mate? He says it's Theo, and I said, I've no idea who you are. It was Theo Walcott, and I've got loads of time when I perform for footballers and rest, and I have no idea who they are. I did a rugby thing for the England rugby match. I knew they were rugby players because they were huge and they were all eating steaks. There's no vegetarians there, but apart from that, I knew nothing. So, it's really hard. I only go for Muhammad Ali because he was just so upbeat all the time. It was just such a character, and I loved him. But that's the only
That
thing
was
I do apologise.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, I suppose he was very goal oriented. He stands in them most weeks, trying to protect them. So yeah, protecting his goals. Thanks, Alex and Simon.
This is possibly, Craig, your least researched opening question. I think Alex likes sport more than I do.
Uh-oh.
So if we go back to Alex's first opening line, I'm often oft ridiculed by my friends because they'll be going, "Oh, did you see the insert?" And I'm like, "Is that football or rugby?" So I'm very much in the same vein. Now, whilst I've not been lucky enough to misidentify sports people because I don't really see anybody. I actually attended my first football match for 20 years. No, I went to a corporate Chelsea game, but I didn't watch it because we were drinking alcohol. And I watched a Watford game when I was 12. And my only other game was I watched Tottenham Hotspur v the Dons 2 weeks ago because my nephew got some tickets and his mum didn't want to go, so he dragged me reluctantly along. I actually sort of enjoyed it, but for the first 30 minutes, because we were late getting in, I was cheering on the chaps in white because I thought that they were Tottenham Hotspur, but it wasn't. They were the MK Dons, Tottenham. Anyway, I digress again. But I can think of sporting people. I am aware that there is a whole world of sport out there, and I'm going to go for. I'm going to be a bit cheeky, and I'm going to go for two because they're two of the sportsmen, and because we're linking this into mental health, they're two of the sportsmen that I believe have done a huge amount of good for the awareness of mental health within sports. First one's Freddie Flintoff. Freddie Flintoff famously talks about his bulimia, his eating disorder, and the struggles that he went through for that. And I just have a huge amount of respect for him. And in exactly the same vein, David Coulthard. David Coulthard has also spoken very openly about his bulimia, and he's really got it accepted. Not that bulimia is acceptable, but he's got talking about it being accepted. So I would say Freddie Flintoff and David Coulthard, if I can have two, are really inspirational. I use them as examples during my courses.
Oh, well, thank you both very much. And I think I'll have to go back to what's your favourite cheese. It seems less controversial. But actually, just taking that point a little bit further there, Simon. We've actually seen during the Olympics, we had Simone Biles, who obviously took a step away from gymnastics, left a couple of finals because to focus on her mental health, and more recently, again, Ben Stokes, who has took a step away from cricket to focus on his mental health. So obviously there's lots going on there, and lots about mental health in the news. So moving on to our main topic of conversation, which is the power of positive self-talk, which I think is quite relevant to what we've just been discussing there as well, and the world at large as we coming through and hopefully somewhere near the end of this pandemic. But just to start things off, Simon, what do we mean by positive self-talk?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because self-talk, actually, it sounds a little bit strange in itself. It's like, I'm talking to oneself. Well, we can go down a whole psychosis path if you want to on that conversation. But actually, it's our internal narrative. So it's what our thoughts, it's our inner voice, basically. And for the most part, we don't really pay attention to it. It just sort of chatters on in the background, and it's not necessarily an audible voice, but it's telling us, it's driving us down a path. It's influencing our subconscious mind. And what that does is, and I've talked about a lot about this, we talk about thoughts affecting our feelings, affecting our behaviours. So really what we're really focusing on is the thoughts, the internal thoughts in our head. Now what's interesting is we're really focusing on positive self-talk today, which is awesome. But self-talk can be positive and negative at the time. So it can really encourage us, think optimists, and it can actually be quite distressing if you think pessimist, something is always going to be wrong. And a lot of your self-talk actually depends on who you are, like your personality, where you've come from, and I'm sure Alex will expand on how the neural pathways fire up when you think positive and negatively. We know that we're drawn 5 times more to negative thinking than we are to positive thinking. So when we start to think positively in terms of optimism, let's call it optimism for want of a better word, studies have shown that optimists actually have a better way of life. They actually, if you're thinking positive, it can actually reduce your stress, which I think is absolutely incredible. And so if you think of self-talk, as I say, I always think of it as that internal monologue when you're on your own and you're just thinking about your thoughts and you're thinking, are we thinking Chicken Little? Is the sky going to fall in, or am I going to soar like a bird? Am I going to achieve everything that I want to? So when we think about positive self-talk, what we're really saying is giving us those good vibes, is telling ourselves that everything's going to be okay. This is why people will have reacted differently during the pandemic, and I'm sure we'll circle round to this, because some people came out of it having learnt Esperanto, having been able to knit duvets, and other people managed to come out of it with their shoes on the right feet. And so we're going to have as this discussion goes on, look at why thinking positive is so good for you.
Thanks, Simon. Anything to add, Alex?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, as Simon alluded to, we have a negativity bias in our brain. So what that means is that if 10 things happen to us in a day and 9 of them are good, we tend to focus on the one that's bad. And this is an issue, and our thoughts go about that. And really, when we're talking about positive self-talk, the problem is that we have so much negative self-talk within us as well. And we spend so much of our time worrying about what's happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future that we have very little resources left for the most important thing, which is what's happening right this very moment. Because what's happened in the past has happened. We can't do anything about it. And what's going to happen in the future hasn't happened yet and may never happen. And that's the big thing. So really, we should plan for the future, but we shouldn't worry about it. And we spend a lot of our time catastrophizing, as Simon alluded to, worrying about the worst that could happen when it might not happen at all.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So if we're thinking about that, if we're just constantly just remembering the negative things that have happened, that voice inside us, why am I not good enough, or I've made a mistake here, or this, that and the other, that must have a profound effect on us and our well-being and our mind. So if we do shift that and now thinking, okay, how can we move to a more positive self-talk, and how can that help reduce stress and improve our well-being? Alex, how can it help?
Well, I think the way that we think obviously affects the way that we behave and the way that we think in future. And the more positive that we are, and it's kind of, if you change your body language. So for example, if you're walking along with your head down and you're staring at your feet and you're dragging along and shuffling your feet, you're going to feel down. If you, by simply putting your shoulders back, putting your head up, putting a smile on your face, it just changes your whole demeanor. And what happens then is your behavior affects other people as well. If you smile at someone else, they smile back at you. It's contagious sort of thing. There's a lovely story with regard to the way that we think about Socrates. I don't know if you know it. It's one of my favorite stories that I tell in my trainings. But very quickly, Socrates was obviously a Greek philosopher, was outside the gates of Athens having his lunch, and a young man walked up to him and asked him the way to Athens, and he gave him the directions. And the young man said to him, "Can you tell me what the people are like in Athens?" So Socrates said, "Well, what are the people like? Where are you from, and what are the people like there?" He said, "Well, I come from Argos." And he said, "The people there are the most welcoming, generous, lovely people you'd ever hope to meet. He said, well, I think you'll find the people of Athens exactly the same. And about half an hour later, another young man walked up to him and asked him the way to Athens. He told him, and the young man asked him the same question: what are the people like in Athens? So Socrates said, well, tell me where you are from and what the people like there. He said, well, I come from Argos. And he said, the people there are the most miserable, tight-fisted, unwelcoming people you'll ever meet. And so Socrates said, well, I think you'll find the people of Athens exactly the same.
Yeah.
So in other words, our mindset changes how we perceive different situations. And I'll never forget one time my daughter was going to college, and one of my other daughters said to her, have a good day at college. And she said, yeah, I'll try. So I took her to college that day, and I said, when you say that you'll try, try implies that you probably won't. And I had this big conversation with her about, her expectations based on her language. And when I dropped her off at college, I said, have a good day at college. She said, I will. And she did, because she had an expectation that everything was going to be good. So just by changing that expectation of what things are going to be like, and this is one of the reasons why journaling is so good, because if you write down things that happen to you, good and bad, then you notice that the good, generally speaking, the good far outweigh the bad, but also the bad things tend to work themselves out and are not as bad when you look at them in future. And as soon as you start looking for good things, then you find other good things, and it sort of becomes contagious.
I think that's right. I mean, there's a couple of things I know when I've mentioned a lot on these podcasts. I'm sorry about going over it again, but I do a fair amount of walking, especially on the morning to start my day, and I try to do that all the time. Stand up, look up, smile, say good morning to people. And I do have to say though, guys, when I am in London doing that, I do get looked at a bit weirdly from time to time. It's like, oh God, Northerner, but it is though, smile and the world smiles with you, I think the word is said.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode of SUGTalks. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you that our UKI SUG Connect conference is back. Join us as we present Vision 2021, planning for the future at the ICC in Birmingham from the 28th to the 30th of November. With keynotes, 12 breakout streams, over 70 exhibitors and networking events all aimed at driving success for the SAP community, make sure you attend the premier SAP-related event in the UK and Ireland. We're going above and beyond government and public health guidance to ensure the event is delivered in a safe and secure environment for you. We look forward to welcoming you back to Birmingham, where we can all learn and develop together. To learn more, visit sapusers.org/connect.
Going on to, and again, I've mentioned this before, and Simon will remember, another philosopher, if you like, Epictetus, who wasn't also a Brazilian footballer like Socrates was. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, how you internalize that. And that's something that I try to live by and think about. How am I internalizing the things that are happening to me? And like you say, it's that self-talk that frames our reactions and on anything that happens to us. But Simon, any comments on that around utilizing positive self-talk to reduce stress?
Yeah, I just want to touch on, I mean, again, fantastic guidance there from Alex. That whole, we are what we think. And going back to what you said about keeping your head up, one of the key things that I used to do, here I am dissing sport, I'm not dissing sport, but I just don't, I'm not into it. But what I was into quite often was mountain biking. And I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was a thing called the Microsoft Challenge. And it's actually now become the UK Challenge. And it's organisations such as Microsoft used to send loads of people onto basically a 3-day outward bound adventure type thing where you do puzzles. And we had an award-winning, medal-winning mountain biker that was doing a plenary for us one day. And he said the key thing to do is just keep your head up. And he said, especially when you're going uphill, because you keep your head up and you focus on a point in front of you, and you just keep cycling, keep pedaling, and eventually you'll hit that point, and then you'll go to the next one. And he says, as you're down, as what Alex said, you've constricted your windpipe. I'm putting my head down now for viewers that can't see, and your lung capacity reduces. as you bring up, you get more breath in, and you've got a focal point. And I've never forgotten that. And I use that occasionally when I'm out cycling with my wife, and she's sort of, going up the hill. She's a good cyclist, but she's going up the hill. And I tell her, well, look up and look at that point in front. What she replies to me, I'm not going to repeat on this podcast because it's a family podcast, but the negativity that comes from her at that point when I ask her to look up. But it's like you say, it's really important just how you have that body posture. But when we think about stress relief, okay, and when we're thinking about stressful situations, positive thinkers actually cope better, because if you're negative thinking at that point, there's going to be frustration in frustration is an emotion that comes with many stressful situations, and they're going to be frustrated because they can't change it. I can't change it, which means it's not going to happen and there's nothing I can do. Whereas a positive thinker is going to be, right, okay, well, I can't change this, but what can I do? I'll do a new plan of action, and I'm going to go and ask for some help. I'm going to ask for some assistance. I'm going to get someone else. I'm going to get someone else into the team. So when we think about how that would help us in everyday situations, we're going to think of new ways of doing stuff. This is why, and Alex and I have talked about positivity when we were having a chat before, and it was, positivity increases productivity 33%. It makes us think differently. And I just think when you're faced with a stressful situation that you might not be able to change because something from work's come in, just having a positive outlook, right, okay, so I can't do that, what can I do? And then you go and have that conversation with whoever it is. So it is really important that you're telling yourself that, okay, so I can't deal with this, right, what can I deal with and how do I get around it? And you'll notice that the stress levels will start to reduce.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also like, even back to the mountain biking scenario you talked about, similar to that on a business. What are you seeing? Are you seeing challenges or are you seeing opportunities? It's that thing. And I've just finished a book called The Midnight Library. I don't know whether you've come across it, but it is a very good book. And there's kind of a phrase that comes up time and time again through that book, and I think it reflects back on what you were saying earlier, Alex. And it was it's not what you're looking at, it's what you see. And that just again reflects back on how are you internalizing what you're looking at. And just back to what you were saying there, Alex, about you start talking about different things we can do to overcome the negativity. And I was reading something about positive truths to balance out the negative self-talk, which I think you mentioned about writing in a journal so you can pick out your positive sort. But what they were saying about it is, like you said, 5 times more drawn to negative thoughts, Simon. We have a negative bias. So we see those negative things that happen, but we have to dig quite a bit deeper to pull out those positive aspects, and looking at those positive truths that balance out the negative self-talk as well. And what you said there is about utilizing a journal is an ideal way of doing that. And are there any other techniques that perhaps you could both share with us?
It's interesting. Thank you. Journaling is great. I think one of the issues that if you can get your head around it, it's a concept that if you can get your head around it, then it really solves so much of the stress problems. And that is whether you're on the cause or on the effect side of an equation, because so many people are on the effect side of the equation and everything happens to them. Whereas if you're on the cause side of the equation, you're in control. And the interesting thing was Simon was saying about the situations where you can't do anything about a situation, but surprisingly, a lot of time there are things you can do, but a lot of people just assume they can't. And there's 2 simple questions that you can ask yourself when you're faced with any stressful and difficult situation: is what can I do about the situation now, and how can I stop it from happening in future? And whereas the effect person will just go, well, I can't, So for example, if someone was in debt and they were having people contact them because they would take their mortgage away, whatever, because they couldn't pay their bills, the effect side of the person wouldn't be sleeping. They'd be blaming COVID, they'd be blaming the government, they'd be blaming everything. They might buy a lottery ticket in the vain hope that it'll cure all their problems, but that's it. It'll be everyone else's fault. Whereas the person on the cause side of the equation will think, well, okay, what can I do about it now? They might be able to speak to the people they owe money to, see if they can get some time to pay. They might be able to speak to their mum and see if they can borrow some money from them. They might be able to sell some of their stuff on eBay, but they would actively try to do something to mitigate the situation. Then they would then look at the situation and say, well, okay, how can I stop it from happening in future? I might adopt a savings plan. I might start budgeting a bit more. So it's being in control of a situation. And I think one of the things that causes so much stress is our feeling of not being in control of things and things just happening to us. But a lot of time we have got an element of control. We just need to take that back. If you haven't, as Simon says, sometimes, there's something that you can't deal with. It is beyond your control. It might be a time to start sort of just biding your time and thinking what will happen when you can do something, or changing your mindset. You can always, the thing is, even if you can't physically do something about a situation, you can do something about the way you feel about it. So if someone says something to you that upsets you, it's not what they've said that's upset you, it's that you've allowed yourself to be upset by it. You can choose whether you find a comment offensive, pathetic, ridiculous, funny. It's up to you. They're just words. It's how you respond to it.
That's very true, and I don't know whether you follow Ricky Gervais, but he often says that in not so calm a language either. He's a bit more flowery in how he comes across about the offensive generation, if you like. But that is very true in what you say there, Alex. Simon?
Yeah, and it's again, it's wonderful having Alex and I on, because we've done so much around stress and that positivity angle that all I'm doing here when listening to Alex is just nodding away like a nodding dog in the back of a car. I think, yes, yeah, absolutely. And what you've got to think about as well, and the two of the techniques that we use, and Craig, you'll have seen at least one of these, is the circle of control, circle of influence, circle of concern. And when we start to accept or appreciate that pretty much the only thing that we can control in our lives is our actions, our behaviours, and our attitude, which is what Alex was talking about, which is we can change we can reframe, we can change a mindset. Yes, that's offensive to me. I don't like scarves or whatever, but actually that's just unique to me. So I can change who I am, my thought process. What I can't change is how other people react, whether or not they wear masks, anything like that. But what I can do is influence them. I can maybe ask them to wear a mask. If they say no, that's the best I can do. I can't control it. And then all the stuff that concerns us. We were talking earlier about climate change and HS2 and Brexit and COVID and all of this stuff. We can't directly. So why do we spend so much time? And the way that you can do this is you can draw 3 circles on a bit of paper, one inside the other. The middle one, the smallest one, is your circle of control. And you can start to put all of it onto paper, all of the things that you're worrying about, all the things that concern you. But the problem is you can't control them. So why are you giving a large amount of your thought process to them? So if you're saying that all of these things, these 20 things are worrying me today, they concern me, and I'm giving them 90% of my effort and energy, well, actually, why don't I twist that round? Why don't I shift my area, my circle of concern, and just put what I can control today, what I can manage, which is me. And then if we take it one stage further and actually think about this could save our lives. This is, I mean, when Alex knows this better than anyone, is that if we manage, or if we think positively and manage those stress levels, we increase our immunity. We increase our immunity to physical ill health. You reduce your risk of death. This is serious stuff. You have less cardiovascular problems. You have potentially leading to less depression. You increase your lifespan by having positive thinking. So for anyone who doesn't know how to positive think, or thinks that they need a little bit of extra help, well, I assure you, going on one of Alex's sessions that's coming up will be amazing. Give you lots of hints and techniques, and I'll be doing a couple of mindfulness sessions a little bit later, which will help you to actually just get the stuff out of your head. Get away from the stuff that's concerning you and bringing it back into that stuff that you control. Positive thinking really for me is about worrying about the things that you can manage in your life today, rather than worrying about the things that are slightly outside of your remit of control.
Thank you, and while we're talking about the sessions we've got coming up, as I mentioned earlier, we've been supporting our members with many sessions on positive mental health and mindfulness and well-being, which began shortly after our initial lockdown in April 2020, and I'm delighted to say that we've now, as you mentioned earlier, Simon, Thrive, our mental health partner, User Group's mental health partner, which is amazing, and we've made them now a permanent part of our program for our members to continue. We feel it's that important to us and our community. And Sam, can you give us an update on how well these sessions have been received by our members?
Yeah. Again, it's because they're webinars, and I know I attended one of Alex's earlier, and Alex is very interactive, but mine tend to be a little bit more, I don't want to say educational, because it's not educational, but they tend to be a one-way street. I do get a little bit of interaction through the comments and the chats, but we tend not to do too many physical activities. So what we've actually, the feedback from the user group was that was a resounding need for these moving forward, as you said, because I can't remember the exact numbers, Craig, but I think we were averaging sort of 20, 30, 40 people on each session. And while it was great, because we had people coming back and time again, but almost each time we were getting new people. So unique users, I think we were well over 100, 150 people within the user group that actually took advantage of these. And I think from an awareness perspective, because that's what Alex and I do. We make people aware of how they can make themselves better. And I just think that as I say, the feedback we've got has been, please do more of these. Please give us something else to think about, because what Alex and I have got in abundance is corporate history. We've got that the IT type of thing. But actually now we're in a field that allows us to give back a lot more knowledge in how people can look after themselves. And for me, that's been an amazing journey over the last 18 months, working very closely with you and the team over there, is that we've able to reach more people, and I think that's so important at this time.
Yeah. And speaking about fields, you even done outdoor walking sessions.
Yes, we are leading a mindfulness walk, an outdoor session where people can join me. I'll be explaining a little bit about what mindfulness actually is, and I'll also be showing people my mindful walk. And it's interesting because a lot of people who haven't done a mindful walk before, you don't walk very fast. You don't walk very far. And for some people it's a little bit, my wife especially, a walk is to get out as fast from A to B as possible. And when I'm sort of looking at flowers and touching leaves and picking up grass and smelling it, she sort of just walks on ahead. So yeah, it'd be great if the members would join us on a mindfulness walk. Depending on how successful it is, we'll be rolling a few more of those out over the coming year.
Fantastic. And Alex, we have a workshop coming up from you quite soon as well.
Yeah, this is a brand new workshop which I'm very excited about, and it really focuses on resilience as opposed to stress, because hopefully most of the people that have attended will have come to some of the other stress workshops, or they've seen Simon's fantastic work on mindfulness and things. So this is really giving people the exercises, and it's very much they get a workbook to print out and to work through during the actual workshop. Exercises and different techniques to get people to get out of their comfort zone and to set themselves really positive goals for the future and to work towards those goals. So yeah, very different from my other two workshops. The other two workshops, like Simon's, are quite a lot of it's mindfulness based, and there's meditation and stuff and techniques like that. This is much more forward focusing on resilience.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking.
But you say mindful walking. Sorry, just coming to that mindful walking. It's great. I mean, if anyone's not been on one, I'd really recommend it for Simon's walks, because a mindful walk is a marvelous thing. But just to keep your and it's something that I talk about in one of my workshops, about doing a mindful walk and just having no thoughts in your mind except for the walk. And you're absolutely right, Simon. You slow down. But to keep your mind fully focused on just what's in front of you for even a minute is just really hard. It's just, because your mind just zims up, goes all over the place, and that's kind of the point. And I think Simon hopefully will agree with me. But one of the key things about mindfulness is the more you do it, the more you realise how much our minds wander, every minute of the day. And as soon as you realise, we don't realise it, it just happens, but as soon as you realise it, you can bring your mind back to being fully present, because we do spend so much of our time with other thoughts in our mind that we're not really fully present in the moment. There's that lovely phrase, isn't there? The past is history, the future is a mystery, but now is a gift. That's why it's called the present. Once it's gone, you don't get it back again. And so, yeah, if you've not been on one, I'd seriously encourage you to join Simon in his walk. Hopefully it won't be raining, but if it is, you go, hey, it's mindful, it's raining.
Well, because it's a virtual one, people can basically. Oh, it's a virtual one.
It's a virtual.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be showing my. I mean, if people are in, if this does go out before next Friday, 3rd of September. But if not, we will be running another one, I hope, during the year. But if people want it, if people are in the Milton Keynes area, they're more than welcome to come along. But no, I'll be doing it virtually, so people could do their mindful walk in their living room if it's raining, for instance. I'm hoping they're going to get outside with me.
Right.
But I did mention, because obviously we're going to be at the user group conference this year, and I did mention to Craig maybe doing a mindfulness walk along the canal, but Craig was a little bit worried about the health and safety aspects of people suddenly being too much in the present and then being in the canal. So we might do it in one of the parks up in Birmingham. But yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Certainly, and thank you. And you're right. We have got sessions at the conference this year at the end of November at the ICC, and also for the work we've done, we've actually been shortlisted for ERP Today Award for the Mental Health and Wellbeing Initiative. So I'm absolutely over the moon for the work that the team and you have all done and supported us in that. It's fantastic. And just to close, is there anything that you would like to close off with? Any final snippet of insight just before we close this discussion?
Just a final thing on the one of the philosophies that Simon was talking about, really, and a lot of it comes back to the Stoic philosophies. As Simon said, the only thing we have control of are our thoughts and our actions. And my philosophy in life is just to be the best version of myself that I can, because that's all I can do, really. I can be the best version of myself. And if you just do that, and it's again, it's not the challenges we face which determine us. It's the way that we deal with those challenges.
It is, and for me, my lasting thoughts as well, because we've been doing a lot around, so we also do a lot of neurodiversity workshops around sort of education of neurodiversity, particularly dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD. And what I've been finding out, because I'm not the expert in that, but I do work very closely with one, was that people with ADHD, typically adults with ADHD, are more typically the ones that would run towards the danger. They make excellent decision makers, because actually their thoughts and their feelings are running at 100 miles an hour anyway. So when something bad happens, a stressful situation, they tend to just think, well, this is the clear path, and so they'll be the ones running towards the stuff. And I think, I would say the closing thought for me really is that, and this sort of, hopefully this lines straight up for Alex's resilience talk in September, is that actually if we think positive, And actually, if we, because you can develop resilience, you can cultivate it, you can create it, and Alex is going to give you loads of really cool tools. And as you start to drive towards that positive emotion, even if you get hit, sideswiped by a really, something that impacts your world, you can actually, because you've built up that resilience, you're managing your stress levels, you're lowering your propensity to feel depressed, and you actually start to build coping skills that will move you into a different direction. So I absolutely urge you to attend Alex's resilience workshop. I will be, because it's going to give you tools that, as I said before, potentially could save your life.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Been fascinating listening to you both and understanding tools and techniques that we can all put in place. And thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. If you would like further information on the user group and our mental health and wellbeing sessions, please do visit sapusers.org or follow us on any of the main social media platforms. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay positive.